So, hello students. Do you know our earth is inhabited by different kinds of living organisms who look very different from each other? These living organisms are bacteria, fungi, plants, and animals, and the body of the living organisms are made up of microscopic units called cells. And cell is the basic unit of life, and our today's topic is the chapter 5 of your textbook, cell, the fundamental unit of life. So in this chapter, what you will study or what I will teach you is about the different types of cells, that is prokaryotic cells and eukaryotic cells. We will also learn about plant cells and animal cells, and about the unicellular and multicellular organisms. Then we will be studying in detail about cell membrane and cell wall, and about the cell organelles like chloroplast, mitochondria, vacuoles, endoplasmic reticulum, Golgi apparatus, and nucleus. Then of course about the chromosomes, the basic structure and number, and about cell division in brief. So let's start with the discovery of cell. Dear students, the cell was discovered by Robert Hooke in 1665. He was an English scientist, and he saw cells in the thin slice of cork with his crude microscope. The microscope is shown here, and he made his own microscope, and he observed as honeycomb like structure and named as cellulae or cells. So he called those honeycomb like structures as cells. His discovery indicated for the first time that living organisms consisted of number of small structures or units that he called as cells. Now let's go in the history of the discovery of the cell. I have already told you that in 1665 Robert Hooke discovered cell. I have shown the pic of Robert Hooke. Then in 1674 Leeuwenhoek studied living cells for the first time in the pond water. He is actually known as father of microbiology, and he discovered protozoa. In 1831, Robert Brown discovered and named nucleus of the cell. In 1838 or 39, Schleiden and Schwann formulated cell theory, and they stated in their cell theory that all the plants and animals are composed of cells, and cell is the basic unit of life. In 1855, Rudolf Virchow stated omnis cellula e cellula, which means that he suggested that all the cells arise from pre-existing cells. Actually, Virchow modified the cell theory given by Schwann and Schleiden. So we must express our heartfelt thanks to these scientists for giving us such minute knowledge of such minute structure that is called cell. Now our question is, what are living organisms made up of? Living organisms are made up of cells. Just as building is made up of bricks, the body of all the living organisms is made up of cells. And based on the cellular organization, Some organisms are made up of single cells, so we call them unicellular organisms. For example, Chlamydomonas, amoeba, paramecium, and the organisms which are made up of more than a cell are called multicellular organisms, like other plants and animals. And irrespective of unicellular or multicellular organism, the cells perform similar basic functions for their survival. Now, how to see these cells? What are the gadgets to study these cells? Children, the cells are too small to be seen by naked eyes, so they are studied with the help of microscopes. Actually, microscopes are high resolution instruments that are used for observing fine details of very small objects. Two common types of microscopes are light or compound microscope, which are available in our labs also, school labs also, and their magnification range is from 100 to 1500. And second one is electron microscope, whose magnification range is 1 lakh to 5 lakh. Both the microscopes you can see in the slide, and I promise you to show you the microscope, the video of the different parts of this microscope also in my future videos. So now we have come to know that all the living organisms, they are made up of cells. Now, what are the different shapes of the cell, or what is the size of the cell? Shape and size of the cells vary, but all of these are ultimately determined by specific function. Means although the shape and size of the cells are different, but we come to know about them with their specific function. Some cells can change their shapes, like amoeba. Amoeba is a full organism. It is a unicellular organism and it has no definite shape. And WBC, white blood cells. White blood cells, they can also change their shape, but plants and animals, they have almost fixed shapes. And about the cell, about the size of the cell, we must know that the smallest cell is mycoplasma and the largest cell is the egg of an ostrich, and the longest animal cell is nerve cell. Okay, now we have often heard that we always say that cell is the basic unit of life. Yes, just as we have just now studied that just as building is made up of bricks, in the same way our body is made up of cells. So cell is naturally the basic unit of life. But the cell is also functional unit of life. How? Because it performs all the functions like intake of food materials, excretion, metabolism, respiration, irritability, etc. And also cells also give us the example of division of labor. Cells usually possesses a number of components called cell organelles, and each organelle perform different functions like clearing waste material, protein synthesis, lipid synthesis. So different organelles carry different functions. So this is also an example of division of labor. Now, what is cell made up of, or what is the structure of cell? Actually, cell is made up of a tiny mass of protoplasm which is surrounded by a membrane, and is capable of performing all functions of life. Protoplasm. What do you mean by protoplasm? And how it is different from cytoplasm? These terms you have studied in class 8th, I think, and you must know the difference between protoplasm and cytoplasm. Protoplasm is the content of the cell, including look into the diagram, including cell membrane, cytoplasm and nucleus. Okay, all these three things together consist of protoplasm, whereas cytoplasm, this is cytoplasm. Cytoplasm is the jelly-like substance surrounding the nucleus within the cell membrane. Okay, the cytoplasm contains the cell organelles like mitochondria, ribosomes, etc. So cell is made up of protoplasm. Protoplasm means cell membrane, cytoplasm and nucleus. Okay. So the typical cell is formed of three parts: plasma membrane, nucleus and cytoplasm. So gradually we will be studying about all these three parts. Let's study plasma membrane first. Plasma membrane is also known as cell membrane, and it is the outermost delicate elastic membranous covering of the cell that separates its contents from the external environment and it is known as plasma membrane. One peculiar and important feature of plasma membrane is that it is selectively permeable. Selectively permeable means it allows the entry of certain substances and restrict the entry of others. The substances which are beneficial to the cell, they are allowed to enter the cell, and the substances which are harmful, they are not allowed to get into the cell. This is the meaning of selectively permeable. What is the composition of plasma membrane? It is made up of bilipid layer and protein. Bi means two. So bilipid layer and protein, or we can also say that it is made up of lipoprotein, lipid plus protein. So, and last is the functions of the plasma membrane. Since it is the outermost covering of the cell, so it is a mechanical barrier, and it gives shape to the contents of the cell. Yes, of course, we have studied that it is semi-permeable, and it is helpful in endocytosis in amoeba. So, what is endocytosis? Actually, endocytosis is a process by which amoeba engulfs its food, and it all happens because of the flexibility of cell membrane. The flexibility of cell membrane helps or enables the amoeba to engulf its food and other material from the external environment. This process is known as endocytosis. And other two functions are diffusion and osmosis, which we are going to study in detail in the coming slides. Now, yes, one of the function of cytoplasm is diffusion. What is diffusion? Let's take an example and then we'll study the definition of diffusion. Let us take a tumbler or a glass container and fill it with the clean water, and then we'll put a few drops of this pink ink or any other colored ink into that container. What will you observe? Please perform this experiment. You all have blue color ink in your homes. You can take a glass of water and put a drop of ink and then observe what happens. Does the water in the glass or the container gets uniformly colored throughout at once? No. You will observe that the ink diffuses into the water gradually, like it is shown in the picture, gradually until the ink molecules get uniformly distributed in the water. This is a spontaneous movement of substances from the region of higher concentration. This is the area where you dropped a drop of ink. So this is the area of the region of higher concentration. So this movement of a substance from the region of higher concentration to a region of lower concentration is known as diffusion. So I'll once again repeat that diffusion is a spontaneous movement of molecules from a region of high concentration to one of lower concentration until uniform concentration is finally achieved. Diffusion is very fast in gaseous phase, then in solid and liquids. Other example of diffusion is that diffusion of oxygen and carbon dioxide across the cell membrane takes place inside our lungs or any other respiratory tract of the animal. So this is diffusion, and now we will learn about the importance of diffusion. See, diffusion helps in the spread of different substances throughout the cytoplasm of the cell. This is very important because some substances are useful to the cell, so their distribution is very much essential. Another importance is that diffusion helps in the exchange of respiratory gases between the cells and their environment. So this I have already told you. Transpiration is the diffusion process, and flowers spread aroma through diffusion to attract insects and other animals for pollination. So this shows that the importance of diffusion. Now the next function of plasma membrane is osmosis. What is osmosis? Osmosis is defined as the diffusion of water or solvent across a semi-permeable membrane from a region of higher concentration to the region of lower concentration. How it is different from diffusion? It is different from diffusion like this, that it takes place only in the liquid, whereas diffusion takes place in solid, liquid and gas. And in diffusion there is no need of the semi-permeable membrane, but in osmosis semi-permeable membrane is required. For example, see in this figure, this is water solution and this is sugar solution. So water will the concentration of water is higher here, so water will move from the region of higher concentration to the region of lower concentration. Okay, this is the demonstration of osmosis, and the this is a funnel. We can perform this experiment in the lab. This is funnel, and here a membrane is tied up, and two different types of solutions is there. This is normal water and this is sugar solution. So after some time you will see that you will see that water level of this funnel is water level of this funnel rises. So this shows that water from this region has entered into the funnel. So plasma membrane plasma membrane of the cell functions as semi-permeable membrane, and osmosis takes place. In our daily life we see that we have water filters, like you call it as RO. The full form of RO is reverse osmosis. So the water is filtered in your homes with the help of osmosis also. Osmosis. Now let's study about the types of osmotic solutions. There are osmotic solutions means the solutions which can cause osmosis. There are three types of osmotic solutions: hypotonic, isotonic and hypertonic solution. Hypotonic solutions: if the medium surrounding the cell has higher concentration of water, the cell will gain water by osmosis, like it is shown in this figure or in this picture. The cell, the medium surrounding the cell has higher concentration of water, so the water will enter into the cell and cell will swell up, and so this type of solution is known as hypotonic solution. Next is isotonic. Isotonic solutions are those solutions where if the medium surrounding the cell is of exactly the same water concentration as the cell, then there will be no net movement of the water. Means the outside medium and the inside medium, that is inside of the cell, both the concentrations are of equal same level, then there will be no movement of water. It will remain like this. And the third condition is hypertonic. If the medium surrounding the cell has lower concentration of water, the cell will lose water by osmosis. Means the water will come out of the cell, and the cell wall of this cell will shrink, and this condition is known as plasmolysis, and the plant cell gets plasmolysed, means its cytoplasm shrinks. Sometimes when you don't water plants, then what happens, there the plasmolysis conditions takes place and the cytoplasm shrinks, and when you pour water or give water to the plants, the conditions become normal. And types of osmosis. There are two types of osmosis: endosmosis and exosmosis. Endosmosis means enter, osmotic entry of water into the cell or system. Exosmosis, X means external, so osmotic withdrawal of water from the cell. सेल के अंदर से पानी बाहर आ जाना, उसको हम exosmosis कहते हैं. So let's study this condition with the help of a very common activity which you can also do it in your home, is that take few pieces of raisins. किशमिश होती है ना घर में, and uh, put them in pure water and leave them for some time. After then, observe it. What will you observe? That raisins get swollen. You see, like, first of all, the condition of raisins were like this, but when you put it into the water, they are swollen. Means the water has entered into the raisin. When the water enters into the raisin, means endosmosis has taken place. See, when we place the cell in lower concentration, the water enters into the cell by endosmosis. So endosmosis has taken place here, and if we keep these swollen raisins into the high concentrated solution of sugar or salt for some time and observe it, then you will find that after some time you will find that water has come out of these raisins, and again these raisins are shrunk. So this means that water has come out, means exosmosis has taken place. When we place the cell in higher concentration, the water comes out of the cell by the process of exosmosis. Other examples of osmosis is that unicellular freshwater organisms and most plant cells tend to gain water through the osmosis. Even the roots, they absorb water from the soil. When you put water into the soil, and then what happens, the roots have small hair-like structure, we call them root hairs. So root hairs, they absorb water by the process of osmosis. It happens because of osmosis. So this is all about today's session. We will meet next with our next topic, that is cell wall and nucleus and then cell organelles. Thank you and have a nice day.